area when you're making your decisions and how fast we make the decisions, because we have to be prepared for what we're going to make. The board used an analogy just recently about a football analogy that we're on the 20-yard line. I'd like to continue that analogy right now. We know that if a quarterback's on the 20-yard line and he looks out at the defense and he sees the formation is not quite conducive to success, the quarterback oftentimes, or should, in order to have success, call a timeout. Call a timeout, slow things down, assess the situation, and then after they call a timeout, then proceed once you know what the best way to proceed is. And I would like the board to use that same analogy right now. I think that's really the most responsible thing for this huge public health issue that's going on before we try to force something through the middle, which will only cause a catastrophe. The other thing is, if you look at the second page on here, I'd like that public record. That's the change.org. We're up to over 900 people that are adamantly against this. And that's only those who know. I'd say for every one person that knows about this, there's at least 5 to 10 people that don't know about it. And I guarantee 80 to 90% of them are adamantly against this, because in 2018, we didn't know how dangerous this stuff was. It is really dangerous what it's happening to our society. And as you can see by the superintendent of Detroit, he's begging for help because of the catastrophe in our school systems. So I'm asking to please slow this down so we can all work together.
Thank you. Can you give your name and address, if you would, please, for the public record? Mr. Pauset.
Oh, my name is David Pauset, 3712 Autumnwood Lane.
Thank you. Jay Meyer, and then Deborah Dantas, you're up after that.
My name is Jay Meyer. I live at 3720 Autumnwood Lane. I've been a resident here since 1987. I practice podiatry. I also have an office within walking distance, and my home is within walking distance to the proposed dispensary. I've had the opportunity to listen to many comments over the last month and a half. I've heard a lot of statements against the dispensary at that location. I understand what the law is in the state of Michigan. I think what our community and our co-constituents are saying is take a break, look at the advantages and disadvantages of putting that dispensary at that location where so many students are driving on buses, on their bikes. It's a very primary intersection in this community. I've heard a lot of statements against it. I haven't heard any statements really for, other than money. I want you to let that sink in. I've heard a lot of statements against, scientific statements, public statements in the newspapers, the effects on children in the community, the effects on property values. The only pro I've heard is tax dollars, for. If the board members want to proceed in this direction and are doing it solely because of tax dollars, when there's so much information against doing this, I can't imagine you'd come to that decision. This article that Mr. Pauset provided for you basically stated that we're in a situation where the kids go and they can get something that looks like candy. They can bring it into the schools. Nobody can stop it. They can't identify it as if it's marijuana. It doesn't have any odor. They take it during the day. It affects their behavior all day, and it can be easily spread between other students. I don't see the advantage here. I would also agree with my neighbors who said take a break. The vote for this was not overwhelming. As I understand it, was only about 4 to 6 votes in favor. Why don't you put it back on the ballot? Let the citizens of the community decide where they know, where it's going to be located, the long-term effects, now that some of the information has come out. I think it'd be a wonderful idea for the board to take a break. Thank you.
Thank you. Deborah Dantas. If you could please give your name and address for the record.
Sure. My name is Deborah Dantas. I live in 3590 Breezy Point Drive in Okemos. And I have 2 things that I would like, and hopefully I can get on time, but I have here an article that just came out 7/7 of this year and at the New York Times, and this is regarding the situation in New York regarding recreational marijuana dispensaries, the effects on children and adolescents. And I would like, unfortunately, I only have one copy, but I would like you guys to read it because it just strengthens what Dr. Meyer and Dr. Paz had said before me. So I am going to also leave this with you. But in recent weeks, we have become aware of the impending decisions regarding the approval of a recreational drug dispensary in our community, specifically at the corner of Okemos and Jolie. It has come to our attention that a significant majority of Meridian Township residents are unaware of this upcoming vote. Our concerns are as follows. The traffic study used as the basis for this decision dates back to 2019 and was conducted for a medical drug dispensary. Since then, the landscape has changed with the addition of the Okemos Emergency Center and the completion of the McLaren Hospital, both dependent on the Okemos Freeway exit. The 2019 study indicated that the intersection would be at 80% of its maximum capacity. Another concern, due to the cash-only nature of recreational dispensaries and the potential of impaired driving by customers, we are deeply concerned about the impact on public safety. The proximity of the process of proposed dispensary at Okemos High School and Hiawatha Elementary Schools raises additional concerns. Children frequent nearby establishments like 7-Eleven, Bigby, and fast food restaurants while walking or riding bikes. Our concerns encompass safety risks due to increased traffic, heightened potential for crime, and the accessibility of drugs to minors. Studies indicate that increased traffic, crime, and visitors from neighboring communities via the nearby freeway could lead to a 4 to 5 decrease in property values. The vote to allow recreational dispensaries was made during the COVID-19 pandemic and involved only a small percentage of the community, passing by a narrow margin. We are concerned that approving a dispensary, particularly at the proposed location, does not accurately reflect the desires or needs of Meridian Township residents. In light of these concerns, we respectfully request a delayed vote on the establishment of the recreational drug dispensary at Okemos and Jolie until comprehensive studies have been completed. Specifically, we propose the information of 3 task forces. One focuses on public health, public safety, and real estate values. Each task force should include unbiased professionals alongside representation from at least one Meridian Township resident to ensure community perspectives as thoroughly considered in the decision-making process.
Thank you, Ms. Dantas.
Thank you for listening.
If you would leave the article with our clerk over here, we can have that in our record.
Thank you.
Anyone else with green cards wishing to speak this evening, please bring them forward. All right, if you could please give us your name and address.
Sure. My name is Marcos Dantos. I'm at 3590 Breezy Point Drive in Okemos, and have enjoyed living in the community for about 30 years. Thank you for giving us an opportunity to express our opinions. I have come a couple of times to these board meetings, and I appreciate your willingness to listen, especially usually after all the business is done, that you have all stayed and listened. I really appreciate that. One of the things that has come to my attention is that a lot of the planning for this dates, 2018 was the first traffic study in that intersection, 2019. Then there was the vote for medical dispensary, then for recreational dispensary, and I have saw the planning. We have our Mr. Tim, I forgot his last name. Sorry, Schmidt. Tim Schmidt doing a lot of the planning. I understand a lot of work has gone to that. What surprised me was that the assumption that, well, any dispensary is the same. It's not going to bring any more traffic than a regular business. And we asked, really, like the nail salon, same traffic, same amount of crime. So it seemed that it seemed like a half-baked development to me. And so in light of these concerns, we respectfully request a delayed vote on the establishment of the recreational drug dispensary at Okemos and Jolly until comprehensive studies have been completed. Specifically, we propose the formation of 3 task forces, one focused on public health, which we know that there are problems, public safety, traffic, as well as other, it's an all-cash business, and a third, real estate values. We also had nobody had a sense will real estate values change? Well, it turns out that there is research and that could be assessed. So each task force should include residents from our community so that we thoroughly have considered the decision. Equally important, this delay would allow to a broader community awareness and input, ensuring that the decision is made truly represents the best interests of our community. I really favor community building type of initiatives like the project at Yonkers that brings people together and people can be proud of it. There are other developments, of course, I understand business and I understand money and I understand, you can say, well, the citizens voted and that's what they wanted and we just need to know where to place it. And so at this point, I think it's too late for many other things, but maybe the where to place it is something that we can evaluate. Thank you very much for your attention.
Rhonda Booch. Sorry if I mispronounced your name.
Oh, that's quite all right.
If you could please give your name and address for the record.
Sure, it's Rhonda Beakey, 4126 Leeward Drive, Okemos. And I'm a nurse anesthetist. I still work. I have a degree in public health, master's in public health, and I've worked for the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services as well as the CDC. And I spoke, and I looked at my notes from back in 2018. I have a Meridian Township agenda item, August 9, when this was first brought to everyone's attention, and stated many of the same things I said the other night when the group was together for the listening session. And so I still have a whole lot of articles based on what I talked about back in 2018. Those studies really haven't changed, except that they've increased in severity. They've become a lot worse. Things on the adolescent use, things on the safety, on the real estate, property value decrease, the impact of, especially on our youth for cognitive development, very grave data. And that's what I feel is the problem, is that we're not really basing decisions that are being made now for the future based on present data, or even looking towards what future data might be, because we have the ability to wait. And I think that's the most important thing that we should be doing right now, is waiting on a vote and even getting together a group, a task force, maybe a public health, public safety, and real estate values to decide just exactly what the impacts can be on our community, on the surrounding community, and our public safety officers that are going to be taxed by this. There's other implications when drugs are bought in one community and sold in another. There's legal implications for that community. And that was known way back in before 2018, like 2008, in Colorado and Colorado and California, when some of these first medical marijuana dispensaries were becoming legalized, and other states were suing Colorado because it was being brought across state lines. So these are all things that are really important, I think, to take note of. Also, most recently, some of the studies, like I said, are that I decided to look at because, like I said, didn't want to quote old studies, is from the United Nations Office of Drugs and Crime. So interestingly, the UNODC, conducts these studies worldwide, and cannabis isn't new to it's more new to the United States, but it's not new to a lot of other countries. And they're suffering greatly because of it. Unfortunately, to quote, since my time is up, to quote this study, they say, drugs can kill, addiction is unending, suffering is needlessly compounded when you can't access care and they're subject to discrimination. It's harmful if it's early adolescent and linked to crime. The potency increased from 2010 to 2014, 40% with THC content in herbal drugs form and 3% in the resin form. The potency increases harm and increasing harms throughout the world, especially in Western and Central Europe, they're finding this. And dependency, withdrawal, and hospital administration, psychiatric disorders have all gone up to alarming levels, which we know we can't even handle what we have now, in addition to compounding it with other factors like
Thank you
this.
very much.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak at this time? Seeing none, public comment is closed at 6:29. We move on to our next agenda item, which is item number 6, interim township manager report. And for that, we have interim township manager, Tim Schmidt.
Thank you very much, Mr. Supervisor and board members. Couple of things for you this evening. Deputy Manager Opsimer has talked a lot about the asphalt rejuvenator program over the course of the last month, and wanted to let the public know that those treatments are coming this month, obviously pending weather, as you can see outside if you look out the window right now. But those treatments are very effective. We've used them in other communities I've worked in. It is a way to extend, in some cases substantially, the life of an expensive road replacement. And so it's a technology that Deputy Manager Officer and his staff looked into and decided it's worked for us, and thus far it's been very successful. So keep an eye out for those over the course of the next month. The search for a permanent township manager is on schedule. The responses for the RFP are due on the 19th. HR Director Titoff is prepared to bring those forward once we get all the responses and go through them and bring forward for a recommendation to the board. Following up on a previous police-related issue, you may recall that there was some vandalism at the Nokomis Center earlier this year. It was a tough case. I think the chief would probably tell you that we did not initially feel very positive about being able to track this down, but Detective Adam Slavic was assigned the case, and just recently the suspect did take a plea deal admitting guilt in the case. And so we are actually working towards restitution now, I believe. And so that's an excellent outcome for Officer Slavic, who you may recall was just promoted to sergeant. So we have an excellent force right now. I continue to be very impressed every time I run into them out and about. And lastly, I would just give you a brief update. The Chief Hamill's feeling pretty good. He was in today on his daily outing. He still has some follow-up appointments, still has a long road ahead of him, but he's looking really good. So we're glad that he appears to be on the upswing. So that's all I have this evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions for interim manager Schmidt? Seeing none, we move on to our next agenda item, which is item 7, board member reports of activities and announcements. Any board members with activities or announcements to report? Trustee Sunland.
Just wanted to mention that I attended the Ron Styka Pathway ribbon cutting ceremony, and it was just very special because he was our supervisor for so many years and we knew him all, and we were just very happy to see him honored in that way.
Thank you. Other board members? Trustee Wilson.
I don't think we want to do anything but bring up Celebrate Meridian. Yes. Where Supervisor Henderson and I were in a pool of beer in our sandals for a very long time. And did you not say, Treasurer DeShane, that we sold 2.5 times more beer at this celebration than we did last year?
We did. There was a lot more celebrating this year.
There was a lot of celebrating, but it's a wonderful event. We had the fireworks, we had food trucks, children's activities, ethnic dancing and so on. It was just fabulous. So I just encourage everyone to see us next year for our big celebration.
Thank you. Other board members? Treasurer DeShane.
I too attended the Ron Styka Memorial Pathway opening. It was a very fitting tribute for the former supervisor, former school board member, who did much to encourage that pathway and a walkable path, a bike rideable path between neighborhoods on the east side of the township to reach the new high school. Also, Celebrate Meridian, as already been said, was a very successful event. There was a lot of beer, but there was also a lot of kids there. I worked in the children's area selling armbands for 6 hours, and the line never stopped. We had hundreds and hundreds of children there and their parents, and it was a true family event. Glad to be proud of it, and it's something the township should be very proud of.
Other board members? Since our last meeting, this board also held 2 listening sessions on June 25th and June 27th, and we certainly thank the members of the public who came out to hear a little bit about what we're up to and ask a lot of questions. A lot of interesting questions were raised over the course of those. I can also say now that, as promised, a summary of those listening sessions is now available on the township website. You can probably search it in the search bar and find it pretty easily. So take a look for that if you were unable to join us for that. I too was at the Steichen Memorial Pathway. It was nice to see Georgia and the whole family out in town to honor him and his service in a way that really felt befitting of his contribution, especially to that path. We also had an opportunity to do a quick tour of the new Trader Joe's since our last meeting, which if you've driven over there, you will see that it is incredibly popular. The community is very excited to have them open. And yes, I was also attended the Celebrate Meridian event. Was able to bring my whole family there to enjoy the children's area for a number of hours. Get incredibly hot and be very thankful that the fire department was spraying the kids with a fire hose out in the field. The kids loved that. And got to eat some food out of the food trucks. A good time as always. And yes, the tent was busy and the entertainment at the bands were terrific. So thank you to all of our staff and volunteers who made that happen. Certainly there's a lot of effort that goes into that for many months. And so thank you to the Parks Department and their entire team for putting that event on. And I believe that was all of my activities and announcements. So with that, we will then move on to item 8, which is approval of our agenda. There are 2 changes to our agenda from what was originally posted. We are removing agenda item 12A from the previous agenda, which was the liquor license ordinance, as there were some technical corrections that our lawyers have asked us to make prior to final adoption. So that item has been pulled. And then I have requested adding agenda item 9J, which is an appointment of trustee McCurtis to be our liaison to the Land Preservation Advisory Board. Previously, that liaison appointment had been given to trustee Wilson, and we did not think through the overlapping schedule of those meetings as both of them met at the same time, that and the Community Resources Commission. So we are readjusting so that we can have our liaisons at all the appropriate committees. With that, I'll open it up for a motion for the agenda. Trustee Wilson.
Move the approval of the agenda.
Support.
Supported by Treasurer DeShane. Any comments on the agenda? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the agenda passes. Next on our agenda is item 9, our consent agenda. We have a lengthy consent agenda this evening consisting of our communications with the board, our minutes from our June 18th, 2024 regular Township Board meeting, the bills, the memorandum of understanding between Meridian Township and the Ingham County for sanitary sewer projects and at the Lake Lansing boat launch, a revised Friends of Historic Meridian beer in the barn liquor license, an appointment to our environmental commission, a ratification of a new firefighter EMT, an outdoor, yes, thank you, two firefighter EMTs, an outdoor gathering permit for high caliber karting for Meridian Motorfest 2024, the SAD resolution number 4 for White Hills Lakes South number 1, and the aforementioned appointments of Land Preservation Board liaison position for trustee McCurtis. Anyone to move the consent agenda? Treasurer DeShane.
I move the consent agenda be approved as presented.
Support.
Moved by Treasurer DeShane, supported by Trustee Wilson. Any comments on the consent agenda?
We've asked many times for more citizens to come forward and volunteer their time, and we have two of them in this case with the land preservation appointment, as well as the environmental commission appointment. And the environmental commission appointee is Cynthia Peterson, who has a degree in sustainable community development, as well as she's a chemistry teacher at Haslow High School. So she's very involved in the community already. I'm sure she's well liked by her students, even though chemistry is not students' typically favorite subject. Nonetheless, we feel fortunate to appoint her to this position, as well as the other items on the consent agenda tonight.
Thank you, Treasurer DeShane. Any other comments? Trustee Trezise.
I would add to what Mr. DeShane said as far as the appointment to the Environmental Commission. As you saw from the presentation tonight, as far as the environmental grants, it's a very active and important commission for this township, and she'll be an excellent addition. And hopefully, we will be able to draw some more interest from the Haslow High School than may have been available in the past. I've really enjoyed serving on the commission, and I look forward to working with this young lady.
Thank you very much. I will simply add that of the applications I've seen for the committees and commissions, this appears to be one of the hot ones. This is one that everyone wants to be a part of. And I think the good work that they do certainly reflects the interest and the excellent volunteerism that we get on our boards and commissions. There are still a number of vacancies, by the way. I'll make my plug as per usual. If you are a member of the community and wish to serve on one of our many boards and commissions, you can take a look at our website and see what positions are available, because there are quite a few, and it's fun. I can tell you, having been a volunteer on 3 or 4 of them at once, it's a good time. With that said, Trustee Trezise.
I'd also add that it's exciting that we've got 2 new full-time EMT firefighters. We have occasionally bragged about adding police officers when we were very low, but finding EMTs and firefighters are just as hard, and it's nice to see that we're being fully staffed with highly qualified individuals. And we welcome them to the Meridian Township.
We certainly do.
Yes.
Thank you. With that, we will turn things over to Deputy Clerk Gordon for a roll call, please.
Supervisor Hendrickson?
Yes.
Treasurer DeShane?
Yes.
Trustee McCurtis?
Yes.
Trustee Sunland?
Yes.
Trustee Trezise?
Yes.
Trustee Wilson?
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you very much. Next on our agenda is item 10, questions for the attorney. We have none. Agenda item 11 is hearings. We have none. Agenda item 12A is the community survey. And for that, we bring up for the first time, Director Clark.
Good
evening.
evening. This is the June 24th Township Board meeting. The board had some revisions and some comments about this new draft, the 2024 draft community survey that we were going to create. So we went back to the 2021 survey, went over those questions and included them in the 2024 draft, as well as reviewed the Township Board meeting, all of the comments from you all on the creation of an additional question. We went over the survey thoroughly with the third-party community resource, Cobalt Community Research, who will conduct the survey, and have presented this for review and any further comments from the board tonight.
Thank you very much. Board members, any discussion at this time on the community survey? Trustee Trezise.
I appreciate the work you've done on this. This looks like a very good survey to take to our residents, and looking forward to the results. Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you. Other board members? Treasurer DeShane.
I like the survey better as well, so thank you for the revisions and getting us back to our full volume of questions. This is a great time when we do it once every 3 years, and it's a great opportunity to see how our residents feel about township services, and new ideas, new proposals, including the community center, senior center idea. And I appreciate the new question that asks about will they support a millage to fill the the gap in funding. So I think those 4 questions will give us a great feedback from the community on the new community center, senior center proposed idea. So thank you for those revisions.
Thank you. Any other comments? I do thank you for providing the adequate couching for question number 32. The one verbiage request I would like to make between the word "a" and the word "local," I would ask that we add the word "small," if possible.
It's your question, so I will add it.
Board members, what would your feeling be about adding the word "small"?
We have,
I'm sorry?
I'm in favor.
the problem with small, it's a very subjective term. We have a lot of 0.1, 0.2 millages. What does that mean? Does it mean small like those? Small is in it's just subjective, so
Maybe we leave it up to our consultants who do professional surveys for a living and say, would this taint the pool would this make this too subjective of a question? And leave it up to them. I think it would be fine if we say, we'd like it to say small if it's not going to adversely impact the quality of response. Would you be supportive of that?
I would be.
Other board members?
Yes. Sure.
I see some nodding heads.
Yes.
So let's ask Cobalt if we could. If they think that that's going to in any way taint the quality of the results we get, then we'll leave it as is. But otherwise, add the word "small," please.
Okay. How would you like to, do you want to add that as the motion? Because the motion has it as presented. Maybe we
As
alter.
discussed, perhaps.
Okay.
As amended.
Yes. That's what I'm saying.
Sure.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions or changes or comments on this? If not, then we'll need a motion. Treasurer DeShane.
I move to adopt the drafted language of the 2024 Community Survey, request Cobalt Community Research to conduct the 2024 Community Survey as presented,
As
comma,
amended.
and amended with possible input from Cobalt on question 32.
Support.
Supported by trustee McCurtis. I'll see if I can restate that for the consideration of the board here. The motion before us is to adopt the drafted language of the 2024 Community Survey and request that Cobalt Community Research conduct the 2024 Community Survey as presented with the possible amendment to question 32 that was discussed by the board. That's more, I mean, it's not the right exact words, but it's more or less the gist. Any questions or comments at this time? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the motion passes. Thank you very much to Director Clark for helping to shepherd us through this process.
Anytime, hopefully not before the next 3 years.
Next up on our agenda is item 12B, the White Hills Lake subdivision number 7, streetlight SAD resolution number 3. Deputy Manager Opsimer has appeared.
Good evening again, Supervisor Hendrickson and board members. So as you will recall from your June 18th meeting, this is the SAD that we tabled at that meeting. So resolution 3 before you tonight does not really take any affirmative action. What it does is just kind of move us forward to the next process, which would be resolution 4. Resolution 4 will set the public hearing, the second of 2 public hearings. So what I would recommend that the board do, and then I'll kind of recap what we've done since June 18th. I would recommend the board adopt resolution 3 tonight. It doesn't set anything in stone. Where we are at with the 2 property owners who came, the one had concerns about the locations and wanted to see if they could be modified. The other had some concern about cost. So on the cost side of things, the HOA, and I think the HOA unknowingly did this, but the HOA picked the most expensive streetlight head and the most decorative expensive streetlight pole, based on the fact that they wanted it to mirror the streetlights that were closest on Pine Hollow Drive. Pine Hollow Drive has several different types of streetlights on it, but the ones closest to Fenwick Court were these exact style. They are expensive. So we have given the property management company that works on behalf of the HOA the full menu of options. They can pick whatever pole and whatever light head they would like, and they have the cost associated with both. And then we've asked them to give us the locations that they would like us to have consumers quote for relocating lights if they wish to. It's possible, depending on what options they pick, they could actually reduce cost and relocate the lights. So depending on which direction they would like to do. So if the board proceeds and adopts Resolution 3 tonight, staff would then continue to work with the HOA, and we will wait until they make a decision on what they would ultimately like to do, at which point, if they do wish to proceed with a streetlight SAD, meaning installation of the streetlights, we would bring back Resolution 4, just as we did on your consent agenda this evening for the other streetlight SAD. Happy to answer any questions that the board may have.
Thank you. Any questions?
Makes sense.
Seeing none, do we have a motion this evening?
I think we need two motions.
Okay.
First motion is to remove it from the table so that the board may consider it. And I make that motion.
All right, thank you very much.
I support that motion.
Moved by trustee Trezise, supported by treasurer DeShane. All those in favor of removing this item from the table, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the motion carries. Now we need a motion to approve resolution number 3.
Go ahead.
Trustee Trezise.
I move to approve the White Hills Lakes Number 7 Public Street Lighting Improvement Special Assessment District Number 429, Resolution Number 3, which approves the construction of the public improvement and the estimate of, I lost my.
The estimate of.
The estimate of cost and defraying the cost of special assessment determines the special assessment district and directs the making of an assessment roll.
Do we have a support?
Support.
Supported by trustee McCurtis. Any further discussion on this item? Seeing none, all those in favor,
This one probably needs a roll.
yeah, let's do a roll
Roll
call vote. Deputy Clerk Gordon, if you would.
Supervisor Hendrickson?
Yes.
Treasurer DeShane?
Yes.
Trustee McCurtis?
Yes.
Trustee Sunland?
Yes.
Trustee Trezise?
Yes.
Trustee Wilson?
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
See you again soon. Next up on our agenda is item 12C, the second quarter budget amendments. I believe we have Director Ianni here to tell us about what is being changed.
Mr. Supervisor, members of the board, I presented a draft set of second quarter budget amendments for your consideration. A few items to call to your attention. As you'll notice, the fund balance increased from the last budget amendment cycle I presented to you. Our results last year through our audit were better than we expected. Our revenues were higher. We didn't fully expend all the money that was authorized last year. So our fund balance at the beginning of the year was actually higher than what we had budgeted. Second quarter budget amendments, the changes this cycle projected additional use of fund balance of $193,323. If you look to the attachments, some of the major changes here would be professional services for the township board, for the contract with the Farnborough Township Manager that's already been authorized. This is just to assign it to a ledger number for expenditure by the township. Some of the other items we project to go a little over budget for police overtime, as well as for some election items. So those are pretty much the major items we think we're going to go over for the year. And the projected use of fund balance in total from the original plus the two that we've already had would be a projected use of fund balance of $735,397, which will project an ending fund balance of $11,617,126. There were a few amendments to the special revenue funds, including cable TV equipment, Chrome TV, and Cam TV. That's probably the biggest one. We received some additional opioid settlement funds, which we're already starting to budget use of. We requested some funds for Narcan holders for the police department. And we're looking for other ways to put those funds to use in the community with your approval. There's also a change in the Public Works Fund, the Water Enterprise Fund, just to shift some funds around for accounting purposes, so we can better track our meter replacement project. Those are the major items, and I've also prepared a motion for your consideration.
Thank you very much. Board members, any questions for Director Ianni? Well, thank you very much for bringing these forward. I do also always like to remind folks that we do also have, we had moved previously the pension stabilization fund, an additional 2 million out of that, as well as the 3 million, I think it was, that we moved for the capital improvements fund sometime last year. If you're joining us for the first time in 2024, this number looks a little different than it did before. That's why. But even with all of that, we still sit with 5+ months of fund balance and average month of expenditures in our fund balance, and we certainly appreciate that. Any board members wishing to make a motion this evening on this?
Sure.
Trustee McCurtis.
I move to approve the attached 2024 second quarter budget amendments with the decrease in budgeted fund balance for the general fund in the amount of $193,323, which projects a use of fund balance of $735,397. Based on 2024 results, the projected fund balance at December 31st, 2024 will be $11,617,126.
Support.
Supported by Trustee Wilson. Any further discussion? Seeing
Just
none-
for clarification, we had this discussion, we had the audit last week. I believe the pension stabilization fund is part of the $11,617,000. Director Ianni, is that what the auditor told us last week?
No, it's projected on our statements, considered with the general fund, but it's actually a segregated fund. It's something you've restricted, but it's something that's not restricted by the voters. So if you want to repurpose the funds, you may have some authorization to do that. That has over $2 million in that as well. So it would also be added to this balance. So it would really show about 14 million, about 14.5 million if you added that in.
If we added the pension stabilization fund?
Yes.
Okay, thank you for clarification.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, Deputy Clerk Gordon, if you would please call the roll.
Supervisor Hendrickson?
Yes.
Treasurer DeShane?
Yes.
Trustee McCurtis?
Yes.
Trustee Sutton?
Yes.
Trustee Trezise?
Yes.
Trustee Wilson?
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right, that concludes our action items for the evening. We have more discussion items for 13A, fire truck financing. Interim Manager Schmidt.
Thank you. I will be brief, as I'm breaking my first rule, not overriding my predecessor's decisions at any point. I try not to do this, but we have studied this problem extensively internally and are recommending a change of path for the fire department to fix our current vehicle issues. So just to remind everyone, the ladder truck is currently parked. It will be parked for the foreseeable future. I have no update at this time on the litigation, although we are going to try and do an update to the board from our attorneys either later at the second meeting this month or one of the meetings in August, depending on when some things happen. So to get the fire truck at a workable level, the plan was formulated between previous manager and the fire chief to essentially bring forward the purchase of the 2028 pumper truck to this year. And in April of this year, the board approved that plan, authorizing the use of $200,000 from the motor pool as a down payment on an installment purchase contract to finance the truck. Obviously, interest rates are high right now, and so that was to be determined later. We have reviewed this, Director Ianni, myself, Deputy Manager Opsimer, Superintendent Rob McKenzie, that oversees the motor pool, and Chief Hamill prior to his medical leave. There is not a reasonable scenario where if we finance this, we don't pay about $200,000 in financing costs. The interest rates are not going to drop enough to make this worth our while. Additionally, after talking to Superintendent McKenzie and Deputy Manager Opsimer, financing it in this way does not do the motor pool a lot of justice in a couple of years. It has a negative impact on our ability to keep up our fleet at some point in the not-so-distant future. Obviously, there's a lot of moving parts there, so I can't tell you what it is, but, you know, adding essentially a $200,000 hit for 4 years, 5 years, 4 years earlier than we expected to, it hurts the plan. So after a lot of conversation and then conversation with the Treasurer DeShane and the Finance Director, our plan is this at this point. We are going to plan to pay cash for this because we are in a position to be able to do so. We do not need to make the determination how or what fund that is coming out of right now because this is we are under contract. That was also authorized by the board in April. So we're under contract to purchase this. It is essentially cash on delivery at this point. And so the expectation at this point is as part of third quarter budget amendments, we will bring forward the plan for payment. Likely, the majority will be out of our fund balance at this point, given the conversation you just had about us running ahead of our previously planned for number. I won't speak for the treasurer, but the treasurer did not have a major concern with this from a cash flow perspective when we talked about it. Director Ayani has looked at this a couple different ways for us, and this appears to be the most fiscally sound way of handling this. So as we put the budget together, this is our plan going forward. There's no action the board needs to take at this time because we're not asking you to reallocate anything that you've previously allocated. I just wanted to bring this forward now. If there are any major objections, I would like to have that conversation now. So if we do need to shift back to the financing plan, we do so now, lock in a rate and go. But even if rates drop 25 basis points at this point, that's not going to save us any substantial amount. We're still 5% plus, most likely.
Any discussion? Trustee Trezise.
I had a question. If I understand this correctly, we were going to take $200,000 out of the motor pool account.
Correct.
That will cripple them going forward, potentially in a year or two, maybe 3 years.
It doesn't hurt
Anyway,
in 2 or 3 years, yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't help in 2 or 3 years.
Plus, if we financed it, we'd have another $200,000 to pay out of some fund, whether
Out
it's
of
the motor
motor
pool
fund as well.
fund. So at double, that's what I was thinking. You're talking a double dip in that, which could be catastrophic, and we end up having to fund it anyway.
Yeah, we would get through it for a couple of years, but especially given the fact that we are now going to be fully staffed in the police department, which is going to likely involve at least one, if not two new vehicles.
Yeah.
Like 3 years from now, it really hurts.
Yeah.
Based on the numbers they're showing me.
Well, to me, this makes a lot of sense going forward with pay cash. Unless you can get it down to 1%.
I keep trying, but the Federal Reserve isn't picking up my calls.
You can't get a 3-year 0% financing because we'll pay our bills.
First time I had to finance a car without 0% was
It's a shock.
bit of a shock.
Thank you.
Trustee Wilson.
So, Tim, what is the total cost of this pumper unit?
It is just over $900,000. I believe it's $929 if I remember correctly.
Thank you.
Other discussion?
What, just,
Trustee McCurtis.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
When will it be purchased again?
I believe delivery is currently planned for late September.
Okay.
So they're building it as a spec model. They essentially had a spot in their manufacturing process that they were able to put one in with, I don't want to say standard, but, you know, the normal sort of set of options that most people would get on a truck. So not a lot would have to be done to it to change it. Chief Hamel reviewed it, determined it was going to be acceptable for our operations. And that's really what started this ball rolling, that he found out that there was a spec that we could slide in and grab. Because most of the time right now, if I offered to buy one right now and spec it out, it would be 2 to 3 years most likely.
Yeah.
So we just kind of got lucky here, to be honest.
Just a quick follow-up. I hope this isn't a dumb question, but between now and then, we're just using the current one, or is that one?
So right now, we have, no, it's a good question. So right now, we have a 25-year-old pumper that's our reserve that we bring into service as needed. The concern really arose from the chief's perspective is when we started having to borrow from other communities to cover when we had a vehicle down. Because at that point, then the liability of something happening to that vehicle that we borrowed would be on us. And we wouldn't have the asset. And so that's when these conversations really started to take more urgency. When that happened, I believe a second time he had to borrow a vehicle because one of ours was then down. That's when we looked into a more permanent solution.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for bringing this back. I think, the original idea of the motor pool was, I think I had brought it up at one point, and it was mostly just hey, what do you, this is what motor pools are used for. Should we look at this? And at the end of the day, I do trust Director Ianni and our management to look at the available options and determine what is indeed the most prudent financial path forward. And this certainly seems like that's what you all are doing. So thank you for providing some oversight and some review. Certainly is appreciated. And this is a perfectly fine plan moving forward. So I have no issues with that. Treasurer DeShane.
The flip side of higher financing costs is we are also getting higher return on our investments, and that's resulted in our higher fund balance reported tonight. Our interest earnings last year was over $2 million, which is about 2.5 times what it was previous years. We'll continue that. Rates have not dropped. They've stayed high. We are invested in safe, government-backed securities, but the return is much higher than we were getting 3 or 4 years ago. So I fully expect us to be able to pay for this with additional earnings on investments.
Thank you. Well, with no action on this item, we'll consider the matter closed, and thank you very much for bringing this forward.
Yeah, so next steps, just so everyone's aware, we'll try and nail down a delivery date, so everyone is in the loop. And then third quarter budget amendments with a plan for how we're paying, with where we're paying for it out of. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up on our agenda is item 14, comments from the public. Any members of the public wishing to make comments at this time? Okay, seeing none, we'll close public comment at 7:06 PM. Item 15 is other board members, other matters and board member comments. Anything else we wish to discuss this evening? I will plug a save the date for August 10th, the Meridian Pride event, which will take place from 5 PM to 10 PM at the Marketplace on the Green. We had our inaugural event last year, and it was a terrific success. And I'm looking forward to what the committee has to bring forward to us this time around. So make sure you save the date for that coming up. With that, item 16 is for adjournment. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
Moved by trustee Sunland,
Support.
supported by trustee Trezise. All those in favor of adjournment say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We stand adjourned at 7:07 PM.
My gosh, that has got to be a